Hey everyone, this is Mr. Pratt here with your tutorial on how to use Onshape to create a design or a sketch for your butcher block project related to the drip groove. We talked a little bit about this in class and what this might look like for you. So remember, we started with a graph piece of paper and we drew a sketch of what we might want it to look like. But again, it wasn't anything that was finalized. So here is where we're going to take our ideas and try to develop them into our finalized idea for what our drip groove is going to look like. Everything that you need to create should be a line. So understand that you are not drawing the width of the groove. You're just simply drawing where the bit would travel. So here on the screen, you see an example of what that might look like. And I'm going to walk you through the setup and the process of developing this. So in the end, you should have one sketch, okay? So yes, we are using Onshape to create one sketch. And so let me go ahead and just click on my sketch here, and we're going to go ahead and just delete everything that we started with. Just as a reminder to you, in order to begin, you're going to go ahead and hit Create Document. When you create document, I'd like you to go ahead and put in your first initial, last name, and then make sure you include butcher block so we know what project you are drawing. So first initial, last name, butcher block. So here you can see what I have already done, and I'm already in my drawing. So again, to begin, we're going to go ahead and click on Sketch. All right, so Sketch. We want to make sure that we have our top view present, the plane, and we need to select our sketch plane. So now I can go ahead and begin my drawing. This is where you need to know the dimensions for your butcher block board that you have cut in the shop already. So we're going to go ahead and use the rectangle tool, and we can zoom in here, left click, and create a rectangle. So remember, the minimum length for your projects was 10 inches, and so nobody's project should be under 10. As far as the width, you shouldn't have less than 6. There's a few cases where that might have taken place, but the minimum size, you should be drawing at least a 6 by 10 for most students. So we're going to go ahead and put in the dimension for this. My project is 12 inches in length. And so I'm going to type in 12 and lock that in with enter, and so that you can see that adjustment happened. And now I'm going to go ahead and change my width, and mine is 8 5/8, so that's 8.625. And I'm going to hit enter. And so here is my overall size of my butcher block board. So these are what the dimensions that you wrote on your procedure sheet come into play. Now we can go ahead and begin to do our design, our sketch. So one of the things that we're going to find out is how we fasten the boards to the machines. And we use a clamp that actually hangs over the edge of the board a little bit. So we can't actually have our design go all the way to the edge of the board for our drip groove. So what we're going to do is we're going to offset this rectangle inside. You may have used the offset tool for your phone holder project. Here you will have to use it for your butcher block project. So make sure you hit escape if you still have the rectangle tool selected, and we're going to go ahead and select the offset tool. Now, to use the offset tool to offset a rectangle, currently if I just hover over an edge of the rectangle, it sees that as a separate line. However, when you left click and you hold in that click, you can actually offset the entire rectangle, which is a neat little feature. So if you don't left click and hold and you just left click and drag, you'll only offset one edge of your rectangle. So we want to offset the entire rectangle itself. And we're going to move that so it's in. So we're going to go ahead and have the rectangle here offset, and we're going to type in the dimension. For this project, we want to make sure that our offset is 1.25 or 1 1/4, 1 1/4. So we're going to type that in and lock it in and hit enter. And now you can see that this is actually going to be the perimeter for where our groove, our design is going to go. So we have the edge of our board, then we have our perimeter that we offset, so 1 1/4 in. So now we can go ahead and begin our sketch in here. So that way we have plenty of room, clearance for the blocks or the clamps that we're going to be using to hold the board to the table. So this is where you're going to need to use your graph paper, and you can play around with this. It's not set in stone still. You know, if you look at the drawing after you're done, you're like, I really don't like this, I want to go back and change it. You can do so. But again, you're using lines. So you can use the line tool, you can use the rectangles, circles, arcs, any of these shapes really. What I don't want to see happen is you are using the text. I should not see any text on your drip groove design. So for mine, I wanted to go ahead and just create what I did previous, and maybe tweak it a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and use the line tool and draw a simple line from one corner to the opposite. And I'm going to do this for both sides. And the next thing I'm going to do is hit escape, and I'm going to use the circle tool. And I want to go ahead and draw a 2.5 inch diameter circle. So I'm going to go ahead and type in 2.5, and that locks that in. And so if I ever wanted to, I could always go back and I could dimension here as well. Let's say I didn't want this to full length. I can go ahead and change that. Maybe I only wanted it at 4. I would be able to do that. So I'm just going to hit escape for now. And so now I can go ahead and let's say I want to trim this. So I'll go ahead and use the trim tool. And I don't want the inside of these the lines inside of my circle here. I want it to stop when it gets to the circle. And I'd like to go ahead and draw an arc. And so we can use different types of arcs. We can do 3-point arc. We could do a tangent arc and a center point arc. And so let's just go ahead and play around with this a little bit and see what it looks like. So I want to go ahead and create an arc here. And maybe I want to, maybe I don't want it that way. Maybe I do. You can obviously play around it and see how that works out for you. Other things you could do, so if I delete this, I could use what's called a spline, and you can see how that creates a little bit of a curve. I think some of you might have played around with this with the phone holder, so you can definitely use this as well, but make sure you're within your 1.25" offset rectangle. So that's another thing you could do. You can use the ellipse tool. So maybe I want to have this here, and I want it like that. Again, this is just something to think about. Almost looks like a planet, so that's kind of cool. And of course, you could always use the fillet tool if you'd like. So it's another option. Cannot add a sketch fillet there, so keep that in mind. Maybe I want to fill it here, and I could put in the radius. So these are all tools that you could play around with and use for your project. And again, you can always modify and redesign this if you want. You can always click and drag things. That's always a nice tool or feature. So I'm actually kind of happy with what I got here. I think this will be a neat little drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on. At this point, I don't need the rectangle unless that was something you wanted part of your groove. So I'm going to go ahead and trim that. And trim here, here, and here. So that's neat. It's something different. The other thing you don't need at this point is you can also delete your dimensions that you have. And if you were working with somebody and you wanted to show them and say, hey, here's an idea, if you want to look at this and maybe make some corrections, or if you're having difficulties with something, you can always use the share tool and share this with your partner if you guys are working on the same size piece of wood, or if you just need some advice on something. So that's a neat opportunity there for you. So when you're done, you want to make sure you hit the green check mark. So I went ahead and I hit the green check mark there. So that locks in my drawing. I'm going to go ahead and delete my first sketch that I have. So you should only have one sketch. And so now I'm going to go ahead and begin the drawing. So we created a sketch. Now we got to create a drawing of that. In order to do this, you're going to need to do a few things. So the first thing you're going to do in order to actually create this as a drawing file or a DXF file is we're going to hit the plus sign down here at the bottom of your screen where my cursor is, and we're going to click Create Drawing. When you do this, you're going to get a few things to pop up. The first thing it's going to ask you to create or choose is your template. The selected one is ANSI here, and that should be the default for you as well. You can go ahead and hit OK. When you do that, then it's going to create a new tab down at the bottom of your screen. It's going to call it Drawing 1. And when we're in Drawing 1, the first thing we're going to do is actually delete all this junk that's in here. So if I highlight everything, I can go ahead and hit delete. And now what I want to do is I want to insert my drawing. So I'm going to insert view, and you're going to hit insert and select your part that you just drew. So when I do that, first thing I got to do is I got to make sure that I'm in the right scale. So we want to make sure that we're in 1:1 scale, and you can see how it pops up on my paper here. Now we'll change the paper size, so don't stress over that, but we want to make sure that we have everything to the correct size there as far as scale. And now you can see my drawing. So this is actually going to be taken into Partworks. So this is we're almost to the end of our Onshape video here. And so from here, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll change the paper size. Actually, we're going to go ahead and not change the paper size. Doing a little bit of research here, I realized that it doesn't make a difference for the next steps of our project. So in order to export this, what we're going to do is we are going to click on the Drawing tab and right click. We're going to hit Export, and we're going to save this as a DXF file. And what this does is it allows us to bring it into the CNC program where we'll be able to make our modifications and create toolpaths for the CNC machines to understand. So you want to make sure that first off, you can go ahead and put in your file name as the same thing you did earlier. So first initial, last name, butcher block, and the format should say already, but if it doesn't, DXF. Version, you can go ahead and choose 14, release 14, and down at the under options, you want to make sure that you have selected email with file download link. What you're going to do is you're actually going to send this file to your email for us to open up on the class set of laptops. So email with file download link, and then you're going to type in your email. So it may not appear. As you can see, my .NET email is not appearing. So I want to make sure that we type that in. So make sure that you include your .NET email. And the next thing you want to do is don't click or change expires in from 3 days to 7 days, just in case you don't get to using the file that you are saving or downloading, excuse me, to our computers within the 7 days. Or in the next day, you'll be able to have a few extra days to do that. And then you want to make sure that you unclick Require Password for Download, and it looks like we're having a minor issue here. So let's just double check. Did we get everything? Okay, so after a quick looking through my file here, I noticed there was not any issues. So again, file name DXF should be your format. Release 14 is the version, and making sure you have your email, and of course expires in 7 days. Make sure that you uncheck mark Require Password for Download. You don't need to do this because you're sending your file to yourself. So that's just a security measures that Onshape takes. And then you should be able to hit Export. So for some reason it was not letting me at first, but now it's going to let me. This will send the file to my email. And so it'll say that you'll get a notification status. When you go to check your email on the school computers or the class set of laptops, you will be able to download that and move into the next phase of our Butcher Block project. So hopefully this helps you. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. And